Are we live? I think we are. Folks, we got an interesting program tonight. We're going to talk about a new documentary that came out called Age of Disclosure. We're going to do it in a different way tonight. We're going to use the multi-man set with the couches to have someone who's never even thought about this stuff before kind of review it with us and ask some questions that maybe you or I have had on our minds for a long time. And after that, well, maybe we'll have a little discussion just amongst ourselves, so stay tuned for a little after show. But before that, a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to talk some more about what was that red dragon that was near David Gates. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The system is totally rigged and broken.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh.
Demonstrators will declare themselves to be inhabitants of 5 distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet.
It is now 89 seconds to midnight. This is the closest the world has ever been.
I still think these are what people call angels. I'm dying to know what they've got to say.
Pretty severe suffering brings them.
These entities have the ability to appear in any form.
Welcome to Strange Normal. My name is Bradley. We talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical understanding of what is going on. And there's a lot going on, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell icon so you're notified immediately when things like this happen. Folks, we have an interesting show tonight, and I think I'm going to switch up the flow of things a little bit because I really want to show you something. And I can't do it. I'm trying to get this NDI program to work on my phone so I could move my camera around the room and kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So instead of talking about, well, maybe I should. I'll show you pictures of what I mean after the show. And I'm not sure where I'm looking here because I can't find the camera. I usually have a teleprompter in front of me that shows my face or what's on the screen here. So I'm going to look every now and then back here. But fortunately tonight, since I wasn't sure if I was getting back in time for Thanksgiving, we got a pre-recorded show, and I'm glad I did this because it's really fascinating. We're going to go through the latest documentary called Age of Disclosure. It just came out, I think, last Friday or the Friday before last, and it's pretty impactful because it's not a bunch of just old guys who say, I saw something in the sky, or farmers. It's a bunch of current military men and some Harvard or Stanford University scientists and doctors. Very interesting stuff that's happening right now. And I don't know where I'm looking. And I want someone to see it that hasn't really looked into this before. So I brought my sister-in-law, and I couldn't get my wife to come. She wants nothing to do with being in front of more than 2 people. But my sister-in-law was able to come, and she sat there and through the whole thing if I'd let her, and was a real good sport about it because we dug into this stuff and really made her think. We're gonna dive into that. She's gonna have questions. We're gonna talk about it tonight, and we're gonna see where it goes. And then I'm watching your questions too in the chat. Make sure you submit questions as you see them, because we can't obviously do a watch party on this live on the air, but I am planning to do a watch party on a day this week, and it will be announced pretty soon. If you're part of the Discord, so you can do that by going to patreon.com/strangenormal, become a part of our private community, and we do have little watch parties that we go through, and we look at this stuff and analyze it and see what are we going to talk about on this program. And once we do that, it'll be sometime this week. I think I've already labeled it out in the chat there. Whatever time I said, I don't remember. It's been a wild weekend where we went down to the Space Center again and a couple different museums with my family. It was kind of like my wife's family as we hung out with them for Thanksgiving. So, without further ado, I'm just going to play this pre-record, and we'll look at some of the things that I was talking about after the show. But I thought it would be good just to go over this right here. All right, check this out.
So, Krista, you're here today because I couldn't get my wife to come. So you're the next best thing, because you're going to be able to respond like her. But I appreciate you coming. You are the sister of my wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at least I hope so. That's why I've known you for so long like this. So you came down, you live in Atlanta, and you came up here for Thanksgiving. I appreciate that. We're going to talk a little bit about some kind of strange things today that's happening in government. And so I wouldn't really talk about this stuff, but I just thought it was interesting. But I think it's interesting because you aren't as exposed to it as the rest of my family is, since I'm doing this side project called Strange Normal. It's a YouTube channel and talks about some of the spiritual things that are happening in society. So I wanted you to watch a latest documentary that came out. It came out Friday. It's called Age of Disclosure. We can't show the entire thing on YouTube, but I can get your reactions and your questions to it. And since I think everyone is kind of in the audience that I have on this channel has already heard my answers to this stuff, I don't answer everything that would be a question that I think a lot of people would ask if they first started. So I want to get your reaction to some of this stuff. And you're welcome to say, I don't want you to just stop and say, well, that's kind of weird. I am not going to say anything because maybe I just don't know what's going on. I want you to say, tell me what's going on here. I don't understand this. This is weird, Brad. Tell me why this is happening, or what is all this strange stuff that's happening right now? Or maybe you'll ask questions like, what does the term UAP mean? What does NHI mean? Or if this was medical, I'd have a lot of questions before it got started. So I guess I could say, you're in accounting. If this was in accounting, I wouldn't know the first thing about what comes in and what goes out. So I'd be asking you a lot of questions. So I want to first start with, what do you know about UFOs? Do you know anything about it? What have you heard about it? Or what have you grown up thinking about it? What has Hollywood taught you about it? Things like that.
I don't know much about UFOs. I think it's mainly in the movies, and Hollywood made pretty good entertainment out of it. Yes.
Yeah. Good. This is going to be kind of strange to go for. So we're going to dim the lights a little bit, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this, and we're going to unpause it, and we'll go from here, and stop at any time you want to ask a question.
Sounds good.
The United States government has gathered a great deal of information about UAPs over many decades, but has refused to share it with the American people. That is wrong, and additionally, it breeds mistrust.
I was like, what is UAP? Look at that. I'm like,
yeah, UAP. So it used to be unidentified aerial phenomenon, but they changed it just recently to unidentified anomalous phenomenon because they started seeing it in the water as well.
so anomalous is in the water and aerial in the sky. Is that what it is?
Well, actually, it's funny. It's actually USO is in the water, but they don't really talk about that one. They kind of encompass the whole thing with UAP as a unidentified anomalous. So anomalous doesn't have to be aerial, because aerial is kind of in the air. And so anomalous means that it's just an anomaly. It's a strange thing that's happening in our society. We're not sure what it is. And they said it's happening in the oceans, it's happening in the air, it's happening all over the place, and they can't figure out exactly what it is.
Oh, okay.
So I guess that sums it up. Everyone interviewed in this film has a direct knowledge of UAP, and as a result of their work for the U.S. government. So this is not just your backwoods guy. This is something else happening particularly in the U.S. military.
Okay, so it's anything that's unusual.
Yeah, anything unusual flying, they're going to kind of define it a little bit more with something called 5 observables. Those observables are things that break physics. But, yeah, we'll go from there.
Okay.
Spent 11 years in the U.S. Navy as a fighter pilot.
I flew fighters for the United States Navy.
20 years working in the U.S. intelligence community.
4th Director of National Intelligence.
25 years with the CIA.
I worked on highly classified UAP programs.
32 years in national security.
I've worked 28 years as an astrophysicist for the United States government and for the defense industry.
At Stanford University, working with the Department of Defense and people in the CIA on the UAP topic.
We are not only not alone in the universe, but we have been discovered by an intelligence.
There's evidence we are not alone.
Humanity is not the only intelligent species.
We're not alone in the universe.
I wouldn't be so arrogant to suggest there are no other forms of life out there.
Humanity is not the only intelligence in the universe.
And they're not human.
Interacting with the human population.
Non-human intelligence exists. It's been interacting with humanity, and it's been doing so on this planet for a long time.
There's something here on the planet with us that is intelligent and more intelligent than us.
This is the biggest discovery in human history.
And together, myself, Jay Stratton, and our team, for nearly a decade, investigated UAP incidents around the world. Based on hard evidence and data, we learned that UAPs present serious national security concerns and a potential existential threat. Simply put, transmedium crafts, vehicles that have the capability to operate in space, air, and water, and seemingly defy all that humanity knows about physics, have been operating with complete impunity around the world since at least the 1940s.
So why does one of it look like UFOs? The rest look like a starship or something like that.
Yeah, good question. So MUFON, who actually is a bunch of volunteers around the nation that investigate these things voluntarily, they said they get statistics back from things that are being seen, and most of them, 90% of them, look like stars, look like these glowing fireballs in the sky, and they move really quick, and they seem to defy physics all the time. But there's only about 10% of them come back and they say they see these ships, these weird ships that happen. Why is that? Well, it's because that these things are putting things in your head. Okay, so now we're going to get into the spiritual side of things real quick. This is where it gets really bizarre. Remember in the Bible when there was, I think it was Elisha, one of the prophets in the Bible, he said, my servant is frightened by the war that's happening, right? And he saw that there was God wasn't helping him. He said, he told God, please open his eyes so he can see. Yeah, and then he saw Elisha. Yeah, and then he saw all these things, these horses and chariots that were there going to fight for him. In other words, God was kind of lifting the veil. But do you think that his angels were sitting on horses? Probably not, right? They probably got their own way to do things because they don't need to have horses in order to fight for Israel.
Yeah.
But God can put things, or angels, I guess can say, angels can put things in our mind that we wouldn't normally see and that might not actually be there, but it helps us. So what they're seeing out here right now, and I'll get into how we know this, but for right now, they're seeing augmented reality of things that are sometimes there in our real life and sometimes not. Like these ships are sometimes not actually there. I have an example of one of these guys who's talking right now. He's the professor of Stanford University, and he said that he has a picture that someone sent him because his family was going down the road, and I'll show this video when I'm doing this in post, but the family going down the road, and they saw what looks like a regular UFO ship in the sky, and then when they took a picture of it with their camera, they came home, and it was not a ship, it was a star.
Whatever the phenomenon is, it's capable of manipulating human perception. human consciousness.
Right.
It can make us see things that aren't there.
I mean, the best example of this that I know is a story that Jacques Vallée brought to me of a family in France driving down the highway. This was like in the last 5 to 10 years. And they had a glass-topped car. And they look up and they see a UFO, basically paralleling them down the highway. The mother looks around and sees that no other individuals nearby are freaking out about this thing above them. The children in the back take out their cell phones, take a picture of it. They get home and they look at the pictures on their camera and they don't see an object. They see a little star-shaped thing about 30 so feet above it. And I have the picture. Even if it was an object, that was there. Others weren't capable of seeing it, so it was manipulating vision. So yes is the short answer.
What's interesting about that is the Bible calls the angels stars of the heaven, right? Fireballs in the sky, these things that are seeing up there. So what I think, and the whole premise of my channel, is I have a theory that we're beginning to see the beginning of spiritualism re-entering society slowly to make people more apt to what's going on. I'll give you more proof of that, but that's a long answer to what your question was.
Interesting. So they say it's from the 1940s?
Yes. In fact, even further back than that, probably 1933.
You get that.
So that's how far back the government has history on this. And the reason is because that's they have these things called SAPs. They have these things called SAPs or special access programs. And they have archived this stuff in those programs saying, hey, you know what? Something weird's going on here. We don't really know what this is. We're not going to tell society about these weird things we're seeing because we don't have an answer for it and we can't defend against it. So we don't want to get in trouble. And so we essentially aren't going to just talk about it. We're going to push it off and classify it so we don't have to discuss it.
So is that the file that they're looking through when they open this AAIP department?
Yes. ATIP, right?
TIP, yeah.
ATIP. So that's essentially what they're saying here. They don't have the background to understand this spiritually because they're not Christian, essentially. They're looking at this from a very pragmatic, scientific view. But the Bible says those who have not accepted the love of the truth will be deceived in the end, which is, who's the truth? Jesus Christ is the truth. He's the way, the truth, and the life. And so if they have not accepted Jesus and the Word, which is who he is according to John, then they don't have the foundation to build upon this to say, oh, this is a lying spirit. This is a familiar spirit and that type of stuff.
Interesting.
But they're going to get into that in a second here. So I want to show you that.
Hey guys, I was editing this video and I was putting this thing together for Sunday and I was thinking, you know what? I got to talk to you about something. We're going to do 2026 is going to be even bigger than 2025. Lots is ramping up right now. And I expect big things to happen not only in the world, but also in spiritualism. And so I would like to get this further and further out. I had probably gone to maybe 8 to 10 different locations this year, presenting this message to different churches around the world, specifically here in the U.S., but also to Denmark. I talked about that. We're possibly going to the Czech Republic next year. That's in the works. We're talking about that right now. But all this requires money. And I want to appeal to you that we just submitted our 501c3 as a nonprofit to push this further out. And so if you see the value in what we're doing, hey, I'd really appreciate it if you would contact me. Let's get this rolling. Let's get this message out. We're on the cusp of something very huge. And we have the opportunity to get in front of it right now. Instead of looking back and saying, oh yeah, that was prophecy, wasn't it? We can say, God gave us this prophecy. Let's talk about spiritualism. And one of the things I always try to do in every episode is talk about the state of the dead. Talk about the truth that we know is so important today. And so if that's your message too, and that's something you want to help me do, give me a contact, Bradley@strangenormal.org, or go to our Patreon, patreon.com/strangenormal. Every little bit helps. And this December, this season,
let's push the message further. Partner with me. All right, let's get back to the message.
At ATIP, we had access to some of the most sensitive videos in the Department of Defense inventory. For most people in leadership positions, was too big of a pill to swallow. In fact, the stigma was so strong that people either believed A, the topic wasn't real, or B, the stigma was going to somehow taint or tarnish their career, so they didn't want to touch it.
We couldn't get the leadership in the Pentagon to look at the actual scientific data that showed that there is a strong national security threat.
They were more worried about the impact on their reputation than they were about the safety of the nation.
On top of that, we were shocked to find we were getting pushback from people in the Pentagon based on their religious beliefs.
There really were religious fundamentalist extremists within the Pentagon that had a severe adversity to this topic.
These are national security experts, senior members of the national intelligence community who are putting their religion above national security.
A senior DoD official actually stopped me in the hallways in the Pentagon and told me that we were doing the devil's work.
I had to deal with people who were senior to me who were telling me in their world that these are demons and we are poking demons and messing in Satan's world and all these other things that to me, I was like, I can't believe this is coming out of your mouth. I'm briefing about an advanced aerospace vehicle that has been detected on multiple sensors that's absolutely there, and you're telling me that you think these are demons and that we shouldn't even look at them and study them. My mind was blown.
How do they know that it's that supernatural power that's putting stuff between Russia and United States?
Yeah, very good question. And how do they know that this was? How did their superiors think? Why did they think it was a demonic power? Right.
That too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they haven't come out specifically. His superiors haven't come out and said exactly why they think that.
Your superiors, they thought this was more demonic. It was a negative spiritual entity. Can you speculate on why they thought that? And if they were an authority in the system, what gave them that conclusion?
I don't disagree with somebody who says, hey, these things could be demonic. Okay. Look, if you really believe that these things represent a biblical threat according to the way you've been raised and the way you believe and think, and you have evidence to yourself that substantiates that, then I can't blame you for it, because you feel like you're really doing the right thing. If you think that pursuing this topic can endanger all of mankind because what we're dealing with is something demonic versus something extraterrestrial or interdimensional, and all of humanity is at stake, I can't fault you for that. Because in your mind, you're actually doing the right thing.
The government knows what technology other countries have because they have spies. They go over there, make sure that they know what their latest, what they're working on, where they at with their technology, so that if we do go to war, we have a good idea. The U.S. government spends more on defense and reconnaissance than any other country combined in the world. And so we had a pretty good idea, they said, on what it is other countries had as far as technology. This is something that came out of that would break physics. So imagine that we can only go up to about 80,000 feet and that we could come down from that and it would take a few minutes or so, or however long it would take. These things were dropping from 80,000 feet down to sea level and boiling the water underneath in under a second. And they said, if we had any human in that, or if we had any drone, it would break apart at that speed, or it would smash the person inside. So they said, this is something, if they figured out how to do this, they have superseded our technology, and if it's another country, and they've done it without us even knowing. And so they said, this can't be physical. This has to be something non-physical. And so because of the malevolent nature of this and the trickery that's involved, that they're probably going to get into in this film, they believe that his superior said, this is not human technology. This is spiritual beings that are manifesting different things. So can I tell you something? Let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Ready? So there is a government contractor. His name is Chris Bledsoe. Chris Bledsoe is he was a developer. He developed houses, buildings, and contract worker, basically. His wife was a real estate agent. and they were working around a base that was being built. And he said the military decided they weren't going to continue this base, and they said to pull out. Well, his income level went from sky high to nothing, and just like that, because they stopped building. No more houses, no more military, no more barracks, no more anything like that. So he was out on and this is a well-documented case of military officials going to him and asking him about this because they're very curious about what happened at this point. And I'll insert that video in here talking about it instead of me telling you the whole thing. I'll have it on display.
When I got near the top of that hill, I noticed what I thought was the sun setting. It's about 10 after 5:15 in the evening in January. So it gets dark, about 5:30. The sun sets. And 4 or 5 more steps up that hill, and that's when the shock came. I began to see a second one. Instead of what I thought was the sun, the top edge of it, when I made a few more steps up, I could see the top edge of 2 suns. And I knew right then that this wasn't anything from that we had. But when I turned my body to actually run, I looked back one more time when I stood up to see if they were there. And when I did that, a third one, same thing, same size, 40-foot, 50-foot round, blood red to orange balls of fire.
These fireballs, the same thing that they're chasing, came down out of the sky, and they were about 40 foot, about 3 of them. And he said they came down, and then that night presented themselves as Hathor, a woman, he says, beautiful woman, dressed in a white gown, sparkling white gown with, it looks like an old Roman dress. She came out and said, this is your burden to bear. Present us to the world, because there's about to become major, major problems on this earth. And we want people to know we are here.
It was a woman, beautiful beyond measure.
She goes by Hathor, but that throughout time and across many cultures, she was known by many names.
She said, there's going to be trouble coming, and we're going to wake the people up, and we're going to let you do it. Introduce us to the world. That's what she said.
Very spooky, right? And very strange. And so, believe them or not, when this happened, government officials started coming and they started saying, we want to know more about the lady. The lady is who we want to know more about. Why would they do that unless they already had some experience with this lady or this UAP? Why would they be so interested in this? So I believe just by looking at that characteristic alone, we can kind of deduce that this is a spiritual event that's happening just as the Bible foretells. I can go so much further, but I'm gonna leave it there and we'll watch a little bit more, okay?
Sure.
While we were trying to overcome all of these hurdles, we discovered another deeply hidden and much larger UAP program.
There was a knock at the door, and 2 individuals who represented themselves as being with the CIA and an aerospace company came to me and asked for my help. They had data of military personnel, intelligence officials, and others associated with the Department of Defense who had direct interactions with UAP, and because of that direct interaction, suffered some kind of medical harm. They wanted my help to look at the so-called inflammatory secondary events that might be measured in the blood. Anything from the horrific burns that I've seen on some of the individuals that leads to secondary problems with autoimmune diseases and sclerosis, etc. And then the internal scarring that I've seen on some individuals, these people had scarring inside of their bodies and inside of their brains. And you have to think about it, if you get too close to the back end of a jet engine, or for instance, if you get too close to the transformer system that is powering your neighborhood, there's energy coming out of those things. I mean, those are just human technologies. Now imagine you've got something which is a more advanced technology, which is generating some kind of field that allows these objects to move. You can imagine if you get too close to it, you're going to get harmed.
I spent 10 years as an intelligence officer for the Navy, and before that, 6 years as Air Force intelligence. And I spent time on the UAP task force. I'm one of the intelligence officials that has experienced biological effects of encountering UAP. Since my first encounter, I've observed other craft, orbs, we'll call it exotic energy fields. Unfortunately, those of us who have investigated it, we become part of the investigation or investigated by our colleagues. The population had about a 25% mortality rate within 7 years of having an interaction. Probably important that the public understands that this is more than just an aerial phenomena.
When you have an anecdote that is accompanied by medical data, that's something that I can hand to another scientist, another doctor, and say, here it is, you explain it. We can argue about what the conclusion is, but we can't argue that the data is real.
How did they get into close encounter with the object and get burns if they were on that airplane?
Very good question. So I like that. Because they're not telling you everything about what they've experienced yet. What they've found is that these things have these balls of fire. I'm not talking about ships in Hollywood anymore. These balls of fire have come down in military bases and on these aircraft carriers, and military personnel have walked up to them with their guns drawn, trying to find out what's going on with this, and they've experienced head trauma, like it shook them to death. And some of them have died because of this. Now let me walk you through a situation real quick. People think that this is ET and ET's here, and we can communicate with these things. Very bad idea. What happened when someone first started communicating with the devil in the Garden of Eden? The plan the devil had went so fast after that, right? He can't come up to us and hassle us. That is the restraint that God has put on him, so that you have specific rules of engagement that you can with my humanity that I've created. And so when we go up to it, then it can communicate, it can interact with us. But these people are thinking that it's ET. Now take 2 steps back and let's think about that for a second. Because if this is ET and this extraterrestrial that is supposedly benevolent, and it wants to communicate with you, and it's so smart, and it's so wise, and it's so morally superior, don't you think it would know if there was a human nearby that was going to get harmed, and it would try to stay away and not harm the human? Yeah. So why do they think these things are so good if they don't care about hurting humanity? It doesn't make sense. It's obvious to me that if this thing is going to allow you to go up to it and it's going to burn you with radiation or shake your head to death, that's one of the biological effects they said was the radiation, the burn that you get from it, then it's obviously not good. It's obviously not righteous being. It's something that is absolutely a negative entity, however you want to describe that.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, they didn't say how to interact with it.
I think I'll go a little further into that, but I haven't watched the whole movie yet, so I don't know.
The intelligence officials that have briefed on these crash retrievals have talked about a number of different species having been observed to be associated with the crash. The bodies recovered.
Why would another body try to hide the fact when, it's all the way publicly acknowledged by the Congress and everyone else?
Yeah. If this is a spiritual matter, why in the world are there bodies? Because these are angels that are heart-stopping bodies, right? Or if this is ET, why is there bodies? Why are they hiding it from us, right?
Right.
Angelic entities they can't create life, right? But they can puppet things that make it seem that these things are alive. I don't believe that we actually are killing aliens or killing angels or anything like that. And why is the government hiding it? Well, because they're not supposed to be doing this. This isn't part of the project. This is a black budget program that is supposed to be working on something else in energy, and now you have some kind of thing that you've crashed. I don't think that what we're seeing, but number one, this hasn't come out. So there's no evidence of this. This is only what these officials are saying right now. that we have some kind of bodies of some kind. I think what we were going to find out, though, is that just like Satan can mimic the idea that you can be a dead relative that we know is going to happen in the time. He can mimic and make it look like there is ET, or they call him an alien gray. It's essentially what the picture is of that big bulbous headed figure, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And so when they come upon these things, they're like, oh, look, it's an alien. The sad news is, though, back in the 40s, we did experimentation on young, mentally handicapped people. And something happened that was very tragic in an aircraft. And people went and started grabbing it and saying, oh, it's a UFO. We found damaged bodies and they don't look human. Well, because they were DNA damaged by humans themselves. And so they looked unhuman. You understand what I'm saying? And so there's evidence of that, but we don't necessarily have evidence of what they're talking about right here, which is these bulbous headed people. Could Satan, though, could he make it seem that way in order to make people believe that we have life elsewhere? We see it in the Bible, because in the Bible, he was able to do physical things from spiritual life. Think about Egypt, right? Back in Egypt, when Moses put his staff down, the magicians put their staff down and it became a snake. It wasn't a real snake because the real snake that was Moses's ate their fake ones. But it was real enough to make them think that this was a live being. So who's to say that Satan, can't make live alien beings, but they're not really live. They're just what I like to call meat puppets, like those meat puppets of the snakes in Egypt that he was just puppeting around to make it look like it was a snake.
I mean, it's interesting the way that they say, like lately it's come more now that they're researching it or looking at it more, when, it probably didn't happen as often before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why is it happening now?
More now than it was before, per se.
Why do you think it's happening now? No.
I mean, yeah, I think it's probably because, the awareness is there more and, just the attention is there more. And is it just in the United States because, we're looking at it more, or is it also in other parts of the world? Because, if it's truly a security threat, it's definitely not just United States, with this magical being.
Supposedly, they have UAP study firms in China, Russia, one other place, and definitely U.S. But there is places like North Korea or South Korea, that have that doesn't even happen. They don't even care. They're too focused on what they're doing as their job to even care about what's flying around up top. So it doesn't appear as much. Japan, it does appear a little bit, and China, it does appear quite a bit. The MUFON researcher, a friend of mine, his name is Joseph Jordan, he said that when he did the statistics through MUFON, he said he noticed that primarily the phenomenon happens around countries that have a lot of time on their hands, and so they can look up at the sky and wonder about things. That's interesting, huh?
It is interesting. Yeah. So is the Lizio guy, is he doing this independently when he resigns from his position?
Supposedly he did this independently to raise awareness about this thing, for removing his pension and all this other stuff, which is kind of a big deal. You lose your pension and you almost worked there 20 years, which means you can keep it.
Right.
Or however long it was. But we don't know everything because that's what he's telling us. Remember, he's part of the counterintelligence movement inside the Pentagon. So who knows, maybe he's still countering the intelligence as he left and still getting paid by the Pentagon, but saying he's leaving to mitigate any issues that are happening here. People are speculating online. That's essentially what's going on here. And they're not convinced that Lou is truly telling the full story. But that's I don't want to get too far into the conspiracy because you just don't know. I can go anywhere.
Yeah.
That's being considered is that maybe some of these were not, quote, really crashes, but that they were left here for us to examine in order to advance our technology forward at a faster pace. So in that sense, they can be seen as gifts from a more intelligent species. One of the questions that would then be raised would be, well, are gifts distributed differently among different nations, or more or less homogeneously, to see who survives and makes progress the fastest? It could be a giant IQ test, you might say.
That's an interesting question.
Keep pause it as you go. Let's examine that because that's a really good question. Okay, so you want to go deeper down this hole for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this is interesting because back in mythology, Daisha studied a lot of mythology. I didn't know that, but she knows all about Greek and all this other mythologies, right, Daisha? That's about as all we're going to get from her. But what I think is interesting about that is Prometheus. What is Prometheus, Dash? A Greek god. Okay. So, and Prometheus, what did he do? Right. So Prometheus, the Greek god, supposedly, and this is all mythology, but let's work this in as if these Greek gods, we know that the gods appeared to the Egyptians and they were demons. That's what the Bible says. So so if the Greek gods were also demons, and this is all the stories about them, just as we had in the Bible, let's just say that the Prometheus demon wanted to provide humanity with something that would advance their understanding, let's say fire in this instance, and in return, they would get something for it, like worship, okay? Who's to say that the same thing isn't still going on today where these things are giving us gifts of technology, and what does the government use technology for? To destroy its enemies, right? They primarily take the technology. We're going down this rabbit hole for a second here and using understanding of the spirituality and looking at this, and they take these gifts and they say, hey, we'll give this to you as long as you kill more people over here in this war, fight Afghanistan, fight World War II, or wherever they want us to. I don't know if they're even talking to us, but they know that this technology will be primarily focused on war activities. So it's pushing their agenda to give us something that we might want.
But at the same time, they gave it that. It's not like with instructions, though.
Yeah. So we're reversing engineering it. So I think at the end of time, when we go back and look at everything that happened in the Book of Life and all the history of the world, we're going to be amazed at what was actually happening because we're kind of being led by these things along.
Yeah, like the agenda is moving.
Yeah, the agenda is pushed along, and these things are kind of pushing that idea along. But I don't know. So that's my theory behind it. But I think it's very interesting that they say these ships that have crashed that we've heard about in fictional stories all our life are saying, well, actually no, there's a place on Earth. This is what they say. There's a place on Earth where it's classified where they gift us technology. What for, though? I mean, a gift, you don't just get a gift because it's your birthday. What is this for? So,
right.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay.
In ATIP, we learned that the UAP event at the U.S. Army Airfield in Roswell in 1947 did actually occur.
It was described to be a boot heel-shaped UAP that broke into two pieces on impact, and observers saw what looked like hieroglyphics or some type of writing on it.
You might describe them as runes or glyphs, hieroglyphs that were actually on the craft itself.
Say it again.
Where's that Roswell?
Yeah, Roswell, New Mexico.
New Mexico.
Yeah. Daisha and I actually visited there on our way from California just to see what it's about.
Really?
It's a whole small little town, like in the podunk of nowhere, Farmville, and it has all the streetlights are made of alien faces. The whole entire town transforms and is built around the idea that aliens exist. It's really wild.
Interesting.
But Roswell in the 40s was also the first place they were testing the nuclear weapons. And that's kind of where they were building the nuclear weapons or not building them, but mining the ore or something to do with nuclear energy. And
in that same town.
at the same time they were experiencing all this stuff. So that's interesting. An interesting fact about that.
Yeah.
But supposedly something happened there in the 40s. Supposedly that was the first place that we have seen something anomalous happen in the United States was in the 40s. But they've said in Congress that something happened in Italy in the 30s, and we brought it over here. The story gets really deep about that because that was the time that we were fighting the wars, the world wars, and things like this. Nazi Germany had scientists over there that were a part of the occult. They were communicating with spirits, and this is a well-known historic thing. We brought those scientists over here to work on our space shuttle program because they knew so much about sending rockets, and stuff like that. And so when we brought those scientists over, apparently they continued their study and communication with these spirits, and then we started having UFO issues.
Oh.
Interesting connection. I'm not saying that it's directly connected, but I think it's a fascinating fact to know that we had government officials communicating with demonic entities, and then we started experiencing this.
Yeah, that's interesting. So they were working in Italy, and now they come here.
Yeah, all right. Nazi scientists.
Science from Germany, all over the world.
That is.
What's the question?
All right, let's go.
What's been happening recently is that we have upgraded our sensor systems on our fighter aircraft. And these images that are now picked up with our advanced sensor systems, we can begin to see the actual structure of the energy field around the craft, which in the past they would not have been able to do.
So question that they got the airship, I'm assuming, and they're studying the field force around the airship. The bubble?
Yeah, so it gets really complicated on this. On that. This documentary is going into things that they're theorizing about from science and studying these things. Supposedly. This hasn't come out yet. And I don't know if it ever will. I don't know if it's even true. So I want to keep it there, but it is interesting. I have had I interviewed a lot of pastors about this on the channel, and one of the pastors said,
"We don't see anything in the Bible where angels need some kind of a man-made vehicle. Now, I don't know how they get us through space. They may put some kind of bubble shield around us or some kind of glory. I don't know. There's an interesting account in the book of Daniel, chapter 9, that tells us angels move through space very, very quickly.
Whenever you see these paintings of angelic beings, you always see this giant, round, glowing thing that surrounds them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a common thing to think, well, these things must be a spiritual being because it has a glow, an aura, or even sometimes they've been called the halo that exists just around the head. And so Paul says we see through a glass darkly right now. We don't really understand everything that's happening, but this is what they're theorizing is a ship. But I don't believe these balls of fire that we're seeing is a ship at all. In fact, that last picture that they showed, it looked like there was like 4 round things together, but they're so bright, it looks like one big thing together, one big round object. When they shoot at them, and they have just recently in 2024, they have a video of them shooting a Hellfire missile at these things.
I want to cue up a video that I've been given. And as before it starts, I'm going to describe. This was taken October 30th of 2024. This video is of an MQ-9 drone tracking an orb, or this object, off the coast of Yemen. You'll see that another MQ-9 launched a Hellfire missile. You cannot see that drone. And so I'm not going to explain it to you. You'll see exactly what it does.
And 3 of these round objects come off the ship and push the object, the missile out of the way, and it doesn't explode. Wild, right? And so you have a big group of these things that look like a Tic Tac or a giant big white thing. And then you had a bunch of them that come out and push it away so it doesn't explode around these objects. I don't think that these are ships, as they were saying. I think we're seeing angelic presences in our lifetime. That's really exciting if that's true.
Yeah. But then how would they conclude that it was a ship? Because they already have a sample for it, no?
I don't think that what we're seeing is angel ships. In other words, I'm definitely not saying ET ships, but it does appear that they might have something that hasn't been shown yet. A number of things could be happening. These angelic presences could be giving us technology that looks like a ship because that's what we understand. And so we think, oh, this is what they have. It's their gift to us. This is what they're using. And so that we would reverse engineer and up our knowledge about physics and all this stuff. And so I hesitate to even say on the channel, look, they have things, because there's a guy named Bob Lazar that has come out. He was a scientist, and the military supposedly, according to him, brought him in to and went through a lot of security because he was a very smart guy, and he started working on these things in something called S4, which is a base that's near Area 51. And so he said that they saw, I think, up to 9 ships that were up there, and he was working on understanding the anti-gravity system based in these things. He said he could put his hands on it, and he couldn't touch it because it was pushing away so hard on this stuff. And the reason why they brought him in is because another scientist that they brought in, they tried to cut through the device, and it blew up, and it killed him. And so they had to quickly find somebody else to get this in. This is a story. Some of Christian researchers don't believe him. I take everything with a grain of salt, and I go, okay, we're going to find out someday. I'm not going to say yes or no to this, but it's interesting to know the background and the lore, I call it, the facts that aren't necessarily factual yet behind it. And that's what some of this is. It's facts that's not necessarily proven yet, but these government officials believe it enough to make a documentary about it. That's noteworthy, right?
Yeah. And it looks like the ships or whatever is flying objects is usually around the Air Force Base.
Yeah.
Am I wrong about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Usually, that's what I'm noticing too, is that these things that are appearing to people are usually around military. But bringing it back to the Bible, it does say in Revelation 16, 13, and 14 that these presences, there will be freed demon spirits that look like frogs. Now, of course, Revelation is kind of spiritual, but it's interesting that those alien grays, the big eyes, kind of look like frogs that go out to the let me see if I can recite it correctly. Go to the kings of the earth and to the whole world to ready them for the battle of the great day of God Almighty. And so it's interesting to me to see that we seem to be having the government officials going in that order, or these things going in that order. First, they're going to government officials, the leaders of the world, the Bible says, and then to the whole world. And so then we're gonna, peons that we are, that we don't have any potential in life, that they will try to trick us with the idea that they are alien. If you are scientists, or if you're agnostic or an atheist, or if you're Christian, they'll pretend to be spirits of the dead and say, hey, we're from heaven a long ways away, and we represent big places there. Don't worry about morality, just worship. And everyone has to get together because bad things are coming to earth. There's terrible destruction happening right now. Get back to God. Understand?
It's interesting.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah. That's, if you want to continue.
Okay. We don't have to continue too much longer. I know it's kind of getting long, but I'm curious how much longer it is. Can you hover over it, Dish? Let's see if they've got much. Yeah, it looks like it's got another
20 minutes.
about a half hour or so.
About a half hour.
We can conclude here.
That's fine.
I think this is kind of getting the gist of everything. It's probably just going to now go into a bunch of theory about what's going on, and I don't know. So since I haven't seen past this part.
But do they actually You say they released this video in the government?
They released it globally just on Friday, and it's in theaters right now in major cities, and it's on Amazon Prime. Let's conclude. Let's have a little prayer. And
Father God, thank you so much for letting us go over this interesting topic. We know things are wrapping up on Earth. We don't really understand everything that's happening right now, as this is kind of strange. But that is kind of the goal. You want us to understand what is happening. So we are looking through your word as the lens that every Christian should look through. And trying to understand this a little bit better. We ask for your guidance in helping us understand this as we push forward in spreading the gospel because time is short. Please continue to help us. Help us. If this is important, spread this message far and wide. You're coming soon. Love you. All right, I think we're back. And so that was kind of the end of that. We did have another 30 minutes left, but I didn't. I watched a little bit after that, and I was like, yeah, it didn't really have enough questions in there. They were just going into a lot of theory. The whole documentary is interesting in the fact that it has a bunch of government officials that are talking about this stuff, and there surely is a lot more questions that can be raised about this stuff. I think we had some questions that came in the chat here as I was talking with you guys during the program. Let me see if I can run back through them real quick. One person said, so are you saying that there's only certain people that see these things? Talking about the augmented reality that we saw in the program and also in the Bible, as we talked about that. Yeah, I'm saying that, yeah, for some reason, what we are seeing is that, I mean, you can just look at the Bible example on this. The whole entire war that was happening didn't see the fiery angels on the hills. That was more with us than against us. So somehow these things, these angels, are able to tell that they're able to make just an individual or a group of people see specific things. And that's what we're also seeing in the UFO. This is a characteristics of the UFO thing that shows that it is 100% angelic. It's from the Bible. The funny thing is, I think that we are so far advanced because of our foundation on biblical principles that we understand what this is going on. Eventually, I believe even the atheist is going to go, okay, yeah, there's something spiritual going on here. Perhaps this is a spiritual thing. But they're not going to go in the right direction because as people start to realize this is spiritual, spiritualism's kind of convert into this I'm your dead relative thing, and then it's just going to go and toboggan into another direction. So this is the danger in it. Okay, so go back to the question, Brad. So are you saying that only certain people see these things? Yeah, only certain people see these things that are, because it appears that this is a characteristic of angelic presences. They're allowed by God to have special ability to insert things into our minds. And let's go to an even better example. They can insert visions. Think about Daniel. They can insert emotions. They really oppressed Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, so much so that he bled from the pores in his face, his sweat glands. So yeah, they can do that. They can impress us with emotions and with visions and all kinds of stuff. I think there's another question also that came in after that. Let's see. Okay, so why do you think that God allows this? So that's a good question, because God's going to allow spiritualism to come into the world because everyone has to make a decision. When I was growing up, I thought the end of days it was just a worship thing. You might see some dead relatives, but it was mainly just, are you going to worship on this day or that day, or how is the correct way to worship? The whole Cain and Abel thing, as an example. What does God want? What is the obedience that we should have out of this whole thing? Not that obedience gets us to heaven, but that God, if you truly love Him, you'll want to do things the right way, and that's loving relationship is what provides God the ability to save you. So So absolutely, the enemy, Satan, and his minions have decided to use spiritualism and that method to push this worship, and that's something. One person asked, Michelle, do you still do real estate? Yes, I do. Yeah, I do real estate, and feel free to contact me if you're in town and want to look for a house, or if you're looking for an agent that is in your place, I can help you find a good one. And that provides me with a portion of their commission that you don't see, so it's transparent to you. You got to pay what they are requesting anyway, but I'll take a portion of that and put it towards the channel. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find any others. Who was this? They asked, who was this in the hot seat? Well, this was my sister-in-law. My wife won't do it because she doesn't want to be in front of a bunch of people. She's scared of you guys, but she's very introverted, and she doesn't want to do that. But my sister-in-law is not as introverted as she is, and she was willing to do that and kind of look into it. And so my wife and her husband were off to the side listening to us the whole time. One person said, "I like this format of you teaching what you know." I appreciate that. I'm not sure how this would have. I wasn't sure if this was gonna be something you guys would like or not. I'll go through the analytics and see if it did well as a video, and see if I want to continue doing this way. If it does well, we'll get a lot of views. If it doesn't, then analytics has spoken. Again, looking through the chat. If you find this interesting, join us on Patreon. Patreon.com/strangenormal. Your reoccurring small donations. I mean, less than the cost of sitting down at a restaurant, a sit-down restaurant once a month, could help me immensely produce and push this forward. And also, we're at the end of the year, so I want to say, as a nonprofit, which is what we are becoming, papers submitted already. Your contribution definitely does help us actually do stuff much bigger. We need to get some video editors to produce more videos on this thing. I need to do some upgrades in this place because things are falling apart. But you know, I want to bring in guests. I'm flying guests out already. I talked about to a few people today about doing that, and you know, that costs money to do. And I think a lot of people want to talk about this, and you guys might want to see some big names. And so if you're willing to submit some big names, I'm going to contact them. One of them that I talked to that we're probably going to get here either this month or next will be Chris Hudson. He's going to fly out from New York. I'm talking to a big name in ufology right now, actually a couple of them, because I want to ask them specific religious questions if they'll have me. One of them is Diana Pasulka. She's agreed to do an episode with us. I hope. Sometimes it gets down to the wire, and and she said, and people have said, "Oh, what? I don't agree with your channel at all." So we'll see what she says. She'll be interesting. We're going to have to really dive into that, but I think it'd be fascinating to ask her some very specific and pointed questions about this whole thing regarding Prometheus, regarding religion, what she thinks about it, you know, things like this. I'd like to get her out in person, but I don't know if that's going to happen either. A Zoom would be fine, but we'll see. I'm rambling. Let's continue. What other questions do we have here? All right, let's see. Well, that was it for the questions. All right, let's see if we have any that came in while I was answering this questions now. Looking for. You guys know everything. You've worked with him. Oh, that's cool. I've only talked with him on the phone. He's a neat guy. Chris Hudson, Meredith says that he's awesome. I worked with him before. And Pasulka is definitely agreed, but she wants to be contacted after the holidays because she says she's too busy. I don't know if Pasulka is going to be able to do it in person. I'm trying to do more things in person, but she has her own job to do, and and it's going to be hard to get her out here. But maybe by Zoom, we'll have her on Zoom and talk with her. Looking for other questions that people are sending me. Nope, I think that's it. Well, this you guys have made it an easy night. I don't know, no hard questions or anything. That's great. I did want to ask you something. This is very, very interesting to me. Don't forget, I'm going to be hopefully doing some sending these books out this week. This is an Adventist book primarily. This is for the Adventist churches. I went to Birmingham this weekend to go to some functions down there, and while we were down there, I went to church and went to one of the bigger churches. I went to Ephesus in Birmingham, Ephesus Church, Ephesus SDA Church, and it was a good church, but I didn't see any of these, so I put them in their in their lobby, and hopefully they'll take a look at them, because this needs to reach everybody. And there's many churches, even around your area, that's going to want a stack of these. And I've received nothing but good comments about them. And people have said, "Oh no, what is this, aliens? I got to read this before I put it out." And they come back and they're like, "Give me 100 of them. This was the most incredible read we've ever had." So I've had really good response to this. And since we did a presentation recently that was just primarily Christian, and I'm going to make another booklet that's a sharing booklet to reach the masses about this, to show people what's happening and where it's going. All right. Oh, yeah. How do you order them? That's important. Go to the website strangenormal.org. strangenormal.org, and you can order the booklets there. It's not really an order, it's more of a Google request form, and then I'll send you a little paper in the mail with the booklets that says how you can donate. That way everyone gets an option to receive them, even if you don't have any money, and people that have more money than others can donate more. That way we can push this forward, and hopefully it all evens out in the end, or allows me to continue and buy more. If it comes to a point where I can't buy more, I'm going to have to start putting it on for order, because I can't sustain that. I can't work as a deficit if I'm running out of funds to do other things too, like bring people out. One of the things that I want to do with donations is I want to make another website. I just bought the domain today, collinselite.org. If I'm kind of laughing to myself, if half of you are going to understand that, other half are not. But collinselite.org is Collins Elite is a terminology that was kind of coined for Christians that believe that this alien thing is demonic. And so I'd like to label out the reasons why it's demonic on the website, and make a little members login and have people join the Collins Elite. I think that'd be kind of funny and kind of fun to do. You've seen it's funny to me, because I've seen the other side try to do this as well, where you have the Illuminati.org or something like that, and people can join the Illuminati. Of course, that's not the real thing. It's a secret society, which is kind of the Collins Elite too. Collins Elite is kind of a secret group in the government that believe that this is demonic, and just as we do. So if we can get that website going, I'd like that as well. So all this takes money to do. Where is the biblical evidence that angels put into the mind of the servant that there were angels in chariots surrounding them? Why couldn't that actually have happened? Well, it could have. It could have happened that angels jump in chariots and they attack with horses. But I doubt it, because I don't think angels operate on the same technology that we do. I think God gives them the abilities without technology. I don't think they need ships. I don't think they need cars. I don't think hardly they have even the same gadgets that we would need to communicate. They probably have been given what they need by God. Just like when we arrive on Earth here, if God wants us to travel, He'll give us legs. This is the technology that God gives us. This is If he wants us to grasp things and do stuff with the ground, he'll give us hands. If he wants us to be able to eat the food, then he'll give us taste buds and something fun. Do I think that angels need horses? Maybe, but he didn't use horses to kill all those servants. The Bible says that one angel can slay everybody. So why would you need all those things up there with a bunch of horses to slay them? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'm not dogmatic about it, but I do think that why would that be necessary? Believe what you want. That's my belief. But anyways, let's see. Illuminati. Angels take out whole army. What about Elijah was picked up by the chariot of fire? What about when Elijah was picked up by a chariot of fire, if I remember correctly? Yeah, chariot of fire. It could have been a chariot. Yeah, it could have been what looked like a chariot. Was that augmented? I don't know. I do think that let's believe what it says. He saw a chariot of fire, and it went up into the clouds. A chariot back then was also a name of the thing that moves. So where's the horse on the chariot? What happened to the horse? Why is it just a chariot that's moving up into the clouds? I don't understand that. I definitely don't think it's a UFO or anything like that. But I do wonder if it was just the best they could describe at the time. And once that was brought up into the clouds, then he was taken up. The chariot of God. It's just like what we would say here on earth if we saw something that would take us to heaven. Oh, look, I don't think we would call it a chariot. We'd probably call it a car. Oh, it's the vehicle of the Lord. Probably not a chariot. I don't know. I think things were seen were probably not exactly what God has in heaven. We see through a glass darkly, as Paul says. Again, it could have been. Maybe God uses all the biblical old stuff. And if you guys remember, I didn't really like this show because I thought it was a little bit. It took things a little too far. But there was a series based on the Bible called The Record Keeper, and they took a little bit of creative liberty on a number of things, and it was all based on old technology. So kind of like steampunk type stuff, because they assume, well, God likes all this old stuff, so let's just make it all old. Well, I think we're gonna find that heaven is amazing, and a lot of the technology doesn't exist because it's going to be built in to what God desires humanity to be. If we do have external technology, great. I'm not going to be a Luddite about it, but I think it'd be fantastic if we did, and if we don't, I'm okay with that too. It's an interesting thing to think about, though. Let's see. Going down through this. Brad, who was Amalek? Where are you going with that? Let's see. Organic technologies. That's a good way to describe it. Organic technologies. The vehicle of the Lord. Yeah, I don't know. That's always what I assumed. I do like to take the Bible literal, but there are definitely some times when you got to say, okay, this is probably figurative. Again, don't take my word for it. I'm not a theologian. I don't claim to be. I do think that I've studied enough to make a conclusion about this UFO stuff, and that's all I claim to be absolutely dogmatic about. This is a spiritual event. The rest of what I say, you got to come to your own conclusions on. And that's just my don't go to any pastor, any YouTuber, any person that you think might know a little bit about one topic and assume they know everything. You get to heaven because of what you and God have come to a conclusion about. This is don't rely on me. Let's see what else. Oh, Deborah says, Brad, are they in the ABC bookstores? I don't even know how to do that. My cousin worked for the ABC. I might be able to ask him, but I'm sure these have to go through an approval process, and I'll try to submit those and see if I can do that. I'm thinking. But steps have to go through first. I've received a lot of it's really interesting trying to get this ministry going, because if I had chosen a name that was easy, like Revelation and Love and Faith, or Hope and Prayer of Jesus, or starting a prayer group, or sometime it's always funny. You go through all these booths at these conventions, and the names are created to make donations. And so as soon as they come up with a name that doesn't make sense, or it's about a topic that isn't health, prophecy, or feeding the hungry, suddenly it's like, what are these guys doing? Are they misaligning the church? No, we're not misaligning the church. We're studying. That's what we're doing. That's what everyone should be doing. And so it's been really difficult to get this information out. And I think that's why Satan devised this idea out of these stupid alien things, so that it would be hard for Christians to talk about this. So it's going to take time, but the church is always a little bit behind because they're always wary of going too far, and that's absolutely okay. I'm okay with that. There's always major danger in accepting things too quickly. So I'm going to try, but first I have to get accepted by major players like Outpost Centers International, OCI, or ASI, there's steps I have to go through to get approval, and then say, okay, you're legitimate. You go through the right steps, and you make sense, and everything you say is biblical. Let's get there first, and then I'll get this stuff in the ABC. That way I can have some big names behind me that say, yeah, we back this. It makes sense. Let's see what else. What happened to a paranormal page on Facebook? I never made a paranormal page on Facebook. I think that was done by someone else. I thought it was still there. Michelle, are you still in real estate? Yes, I am. Contact me if you need some help. What is your contact for real estate? Email or what? Yeah, you can email me, bradley@strangenormal.org, or call or text me. If it's about UFOs or strange stuff, please, strangers, don't send me text messages. I'm overwhelmed with real estate already, and so I can't respond, and so it drifts off, and I feel bad about that. And so if you call me or text me or want to talk about spiritualism, I can't do it. I can't do it. But if it's about real estate, 423-749-0000. That's my number. You can do that. Let's see here. Brad, you think people that have seen these demons have or can do things? Do what? Do what things? They never did before. See or do things they never did before. Or what would be some form of possession? I think we're going to see a time when demonic entities are giving people what they think are special powers, just like they gave Chris Bledsoe I'm going to use my finger quotes, power to heal, because that's what the movies have been pushing, that idea of look, everyone can have we all can have a special power. We're all X-Men. We're all this thing. If you watch any of these, the end of this movie is always fighting something in the sky by flying up there or doing some crazy things that you can do. And we're told that there's going to be this age of Aquarius that is going to say, everyone can move to a new evolution of things, and all they need to do is just do X, Y, and Z, and they can be a part of this too. Come together as a group. That's what I expect to happen. So yeah, do I think that these things are giving things to them? No, I think they're doing things that make people think they are receiving things, and that's the danger. Long explanation. Be careful aligning with other ministries. Do your homework first, all I'm saying. I don't know what that means. Email me. I don't think I've aligned with anybody. Why is it lagging? I don't know. Is it lagging? No. She says, sorry for giving out your text info. No. This is okay. I've done this before. I just want to make sure that people don't... I can get overwhelmed with the amount of text messages people send me. So I just need to keep it to work only. Unless it's like something huge that has happened. If something's happening, feel free to say, yeah, you got to check this out. Something big is happening. Atlanta just got taken out by a UFO. The White House the president has been taken away by demons. Things like that. Yeah, text me. I'd appreciate that. Facetious. Steven said the cost is too great. Maybe I just missed it. Can I finally become Spider-Man? Yeah, you're right. The cost is too great. All you have to do is give your soul to the devil. You don't want to do that. Yeah, Michelle said look into levitation, martial arts, all this stuff. It's true. Let's see. Invite Dr. Conrad Vine to your show. You know what? I have invited him. I emailed him. I talked to him once and asked him to talk about spiritualism, but he was just starting this whole thing that happened to him, and he wasn't feeling doing anything but focusing on that. And I understand when you have something that comes down on you, all of a sudden you don't want to do your normal topics anymore. You want to focus on the fire, and he was dealing with putting out a fire in his life. But I did meet him at Blue Star at the Space and Rocket Center, and he gave me his card twice, and I emailed him. I don't think he emailed me back. I'll email him again to see if we can get something going, because I would like his take on spiritualism, since he had been part of AFM for so long as a missionary. That's kind of why I brought David Gates out too. But I didn't want to get into the politics and everything like that with him. So I want to just keep this focused. This ministry is focused on one thing, and that's spiritualism. We might go into things like anything else, other Bible prophecy stuff, like Revelations 13 talks about worship and things. So that might be something that we dive into every once in a while, and maybe we'll get into health. And we've done a couple podcasts with people like that I haven't released yet. So, but primarily we're dealing with spiritualism and understanding that. So that's kind of what to. I won't be having Eric Wilson on ever. I'm not going to say anything else. There are people that have not been very kind to me, and that is in the Little Light Studios and Eric Wilson, that I won't have anything to do with. Sorry. That's all I'm going to say about that. Revival, you guys should check out Revival of Evil. I don't know what that is. Thanks, Jay Tyler. Appreciate that. Get Matthew out of retirement. Yeah, Matthew needs to get out of retirement. He was a good asset in the show. I wish he would. Matthew wasn't. Matthew and I were of the same religion, so it was difficult. And sometimes in the back end, it was hard to. It was hard to see eye to eye on things, and so I think it was probably best that I align with people that are in my church from now on. That was the difficult thing with Matthew and I. What about people that can go to answer a phone that doesn't start ringing until it's there, but they know what's going on? I don't know what that means. About people that can go answer a phone that doesn't ring until they're there. I haven't seen that before. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. A man once who believed 100% that Jesus is coming back in a chariot, and that chariot will be a UFO. You know, I've heard people say that, and I think that's interesting too. I don't know if I can I can back that though, because if I don't know if I can't prove that from the Bible or spirit prophecy. I can't show any proof of that Satan's coming back in a UFO or Jesus or anything like that. I don't believe that Jesus is. Absolutely not. He's coming back going to be to the right side of God, and it's going to be storms surrounding him, beautiful rainbows. I mean, it's going to be, people are not brighter than the sun. So we were given a very clear description of what that's going to be like. But Satan, I don't know. I think he's going to try his best to mimic things, but I don't think it's going to be, he can't do it exactly. He's prevented from doing that. So dowsing. Oh yeah. Let's talk about that. Just a second. Let me read up before I get into that. I had a conversation with a man once who believed, okay, I already read that. Like premonition. Premonitions are strange. What about having Walter Veith again? I want to have Walter Veith again. I think he had one of the most interesting stories I had ever heard. And but the problem is he's not over here in the States very much. And I still have contact with Martin. I'm going to ask him if they're coming back this year or next year, for sure. I have interviewed Chris Lane. He actually used to live in Tennessee, and he's gone now, but he's coming back because he just finished a documentary. We have plans to talk about that in person, so I'm hoping he comes into town. Let me see. Just a second. What's your opinion on dowsing and similar abilities? I don't like dowsing. I've heard a lot about dowsing, and I had a well thing. I know it does work. I've talked to some big pastors, I won't say who it is, about that, and they seem to say, well, there's something there, we don't know. And so that's me personally, I don't want to have anything to do with it. It seems spiritual. I wouldn't do it on my property. I'm not going to criticize anybody for doing it on their property. I think I'll just leave it at that. Let's see. Brad, what would your explanation be for some people that are able to know something is going to happen before it does then? Premonitions. Or things that happen before, people that have been told things are going to happen, but before they happen. I see what you're saying. I do believe that both God and Satan have the ability to put visions into our minds, but only God really knows the future. All Satan can do is calculate. He can calculate, and he's pretty good at being right. That's what we're told will happen at the end. They'll say some things are going to happen, and they're most of the time right, which makes them seem reliable. Premonitions are kind of like a mixture of that. When you have spiritualism saying this will happen, and then it does or doesn't, but they put it in your head. Like, for instance, Roger Murnau had a premonition or a dream, I guess it was more of a dream, that something was going to happen to his horse races, and he won a lot of money until the owner of it, by gunpoint, said he can't come back because you won everything. So premonitions, I believe, are spiritual. I'm getting behind, guys. Let's see. Yeah, chariots on a white horse. I think that's a metaphor. That's why I was thinking that the horses that they were seeing is a metaphor too. I don't know if they have horses on earth. I knew horses will be in heaven, but I think it's a metaphor. Don't think it's necessarily what they need. I think angels have an ability to get around. They don't have a galloping horse in the sky, in other words. That's a good idea. Yeah, talking to other people who have had experiences, I want to make sure that they have the right mindset on it. And so that's the hard part, is trying to find the people that aren't going to go off and try to tell the audience that they can use CE5 or something to contact these things. Ever Happy says, what about intuition? It is very weird, and it happens to me many times. I feel things coming through before they happen. So intuition, people think is spiritual, but what I think it is the brain picks up on things that are subconscious, just doesn't immediately see. And especially if you're used to doing many things at the same time. Men especially are focused. We can do one thing at a time. We do it really well. If you look at, and I'm not being misogynist by saying this, but if you look at a lot of the big careers, usually it's done by men. Even, let me give you an example. Cooks, usually the top ones are men. Things that you would think that would be more focused on other things, and the reason why is because we have focus. Women are really, really, really good at managing a lot of things, a lot of places, a lot of times. My wife, bless her heart, my goodness, I can't find my tools because I'm focused on working, but she knows where every single thing is. She's inventoried everything in her head and knows where everything is all the time. I don't know how to do it. But I think that's why God put us together. We need each other, and that's the reason why. So what does this have to do with premonition? Well, I think it's because when you have someone that's really senses stuff, and they're good at sensing things and going, oh, over here. I seem to remember, it seems to me that I feel that they are not a good person. It's not because they are receiving things through the air. It's because they have subtly picked up on traits, whether it be how they look, how their eyes dart back and forth, how they act. Maybe they are acting odd, and their subconscious goes, I match that with evil and that with good. So they call a feeling, which is not a feeling. It's your conscience is picking it up and going, this is logical. Whereas the premonition, they call it, is actually just more logical than you realize. So I don't think not a premonition, what's it called? Intuition. Intuition is more of a logical subconscious system that is more evident in women, because women are managing a bunch of other stuff at the same time. I hope I explained that right and didn't come off as misogynistic, because I definitely don't think that there is anything bad between men and women. I just think that we have amazing different roles that we use, and we use it for God's glory. A deja vu is a glitch in the Matrix. No. I don't know what deja vu is. I don't know. I have to dig into that. Haven't thought about it. Let's see. Will the Idaho Red Line meetings be online? We are definitely, when we get those back from being edited, they will be online. I'm not sure where yet, so I'll keep you posted. What about crop design? You talking about crop circles, Julie? You said, what about crop design? Oh yeah, Julie, like crop circles. You can get the booklet, go to strangenormal.org, and then click on the link under the image of the book, and you can request it. Deja, well, Deja is the name of my wife. A deja vu, I don't know what that is. It's a glitch in your brain. Oh, yeah. If someone has a medical understanding of what a deja vu is, I'd be curious to talk about it. Even Zoom call. I think that's an interesting conversation. That's a strange normal. It could just be that you had something, a weird dream, and what happened in life was very similar, and you're like, wait, I thought I saw that before. I don't know. You know, I had a weird dream last night. I mean, I don't usually dream, and I don't think this was a premonition. I don't think this was a prophecy. I don't think anything like that. It was just weird, probably because I'm thinking about this whole stuff too much. I went up to my wife, and she was very confused and looking at me as I was talking to her, and she says, and I said, why are you looking at me? Am I supposed to be dead? She says, yeah. And I said, well, that's impossible because the dead know nothing. So I was very confused, as everyone thought I wasn't there anymore. Of course, that can't happen in real life, but what a weird dream. It was a creepy dream. All right, I think we're about done. Oh yeah, that's a good point. If you didn't get booklets and you have put in your address into the request, the reason is because I don't know your full address. You only put your street and street number. You didn't add your city, state, and zip. And because of that, I couldn't get it to you. And I tried to contact you as best I could, but I, for whatever reason, didn't reach you. We also had one that was returned because it had nobody that lived there anymore. And also, someone sent them to the police of their city. Don't do that. It's a good way to get people mad at me, and also a good way to get them all thrown away, because it's going to go to one person, then they're going to search through them thinking that there's something bad in them. You know, you don't want to have weird white powder or something that, you know, people are going to think is inside. Even to get them inside of a prison, they can't have even staples in them. So these don't go to prison because they have to be perfectly, I forget what they call it, a perfect binding, which means that they are glued together and have a little square on the outside. So they won't go to prison. But we're working. We're going to get some better ones, and we still got a lot more to give out. So make sure you submit those because we're going to send them out this week. All right, we're done. I think everyone is having a chatty time on here. Are you set up now to issue tax receipts for this year? I according to the law, after I submit my paperwork, I'm allowed to submit tax receipts. Or I'm allowed to do that. The problem is that if it comes back and it says that you missed something and you have to resubmit, which is rare that you have to resubmit it because it was submitted once already, then that could be a hassle. But once I submit it, that is the date. It says in the paperwork, have you received anything before this? And I say no. Everything that's going forward, I'm going to start taking donations for. So as of a couple weeks ago, I can start doing tax receipts for this year, according to the law. That was a good question. But no, if they have any problems with the paperwork, I still submitted it weeks ago. So they wouldn't come back and say, well, you weren't approved. They would just say, hey, you got to correct this. And then they would still keep the date. So yes, the answer is yes. Long answer. Reading. So do that by giving me a call. This is one of the rare instances where I say, well, if it's a part of Strange Normal and it's not real estate, give me a call about that. So 423-749-0000. That's a direct line to my cell phone. You can text or call that number, or you can email me, Bradley, BRADLEY, @strangenormal.org. And let me see if there's any of the direct. Those are the two direct ways to get in contact with me. The other ways through social media are hit or miss. I don't check those, sometimes weekly or sometimes every other week, but my email and my phone number are the ones I check daily. And so I will get back to you immediately. Way to go, Michelle. I'm working on the off-grid part myself. Yes, I can. I'll type it in the chat here. And my number. All right, sent. There's a little bit of a delay, but you'll get that shortly, or probably sooner than you hear me talk about it. I have submitted my 501c3, and so all the paperwork is submitted, and the government is working on that, and the paperwork says that once you submit this to the government, you can start taking donations and tax receipts. If there is an error in the paperwork, they'll come back to me, and I'll just correct it, and it all from this point forward is allowed. If there's any other questions I missed, I'm so sorry. The chat goes so fast that I sometimes can't get to you. Thank you for spending time, your sister-in-law too. Oh, that's so nice of you. All right, I think that concludes for tonight. You know, I appreciate each and every one of you, and let's end with a word of prayer. Father God, thank you so much for giving us time to go through this important topic. Guide us and direct us, help us to do your will. We know time is short, and we want to do as much for you as we can in this short time we have. Bless the work that's being done already, and help us to do even more next year. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, folks. As usual, my name is Bradley, and this has been Pure Strangeness and Absolute Normalcy. Strange Normal. We'll talk to you later.
You're watching Strange Normal, where the truth is the truth.